Ms. Janet Ang.
Mr. Speaker, let me declare that I am a council member of Singapore Business Federation. I have spent 37 years in the ICT industry, and I was a foreign worker myself, 3 years in Japan and 8 years in China. So thank you, Mr. Speaker, for the privilege to join in the debate on the subject of jobs, livelihoods, and foreign talent. I have shared previously in this chamber my views of the imperative of free trade agreements for Singapore businesses. The FTA network, which Singapore has established, including the more recent digital economic agreements, offer a key tool for businesses to expand into new markets, enhancing accessibility of different markets. And I quote Mr. Lam Yi Yang, CEO of SBF, who wrote in a July article, "Trade is Singapore's lifeline, and it is imperative that we remain open and connected to the world." We are a country built by immigrants. But Singapore has gone from third world to the first by recognizing that though we are an island, it is imperative that we cannot behave like one. We need to be relevant to the global economy. And when I did a research of all the rankings that's out there, in almost every competitiveness ranking report for the most innovative cities in the world's best global cities, the world's most competitive economy, this is what I found. A city's ability to attract talented human capital, to generate economic growth, increase competitiveness, and ensure stability and security are key factors that make the difference. Singapore, though just a little red dot, is ranked amongst the top 10 in many of these lists. The concentration of quality talent is invariably a key factor for outperformers, whether they are companies or cities. Singapore's highly educated workforce, enabled by world-class university communities here, coupled with our ability to attract diversity of global talent, has helped us maintain our competitiveness and attract large multinational companies to expand in Singapore and startups to plant their seeds of innovation here. In dialogues which I had with TACs and chambers throughout the year, it is almost unanimous, I could say unanimous, that Singapore must maintain our open foreign talent policy. To quote Mr. Farid Khan, President of the Singapore Malay Chamber of Commerce, "Singapore must accept diversity and remain open and transparent in our foreign talent policy, even as we scale up the number of graduates from IHLs majoring in key disciplines where we have supply-demand gaps, information technology, cybersecurity, software engineering, and the like." Unquote. Now, in the same breath, all agree that companies, both global MNCs and Singapore companies, need to implement fair practices in the workplace. They demonstrated their commitment with a pledge in January earlier this year. And Mr. Per Manuson tells me that the Singapore International Chamber of Commerce has focused on operationalizing the intent of the pledge by doing a pilot of orientation programs for newcomers to Singapore. But of course, alas, industry-wide, it is still work in progress. Now, we might think that foreign talents are needed only by the MNCs, but that's not true. Dr. T. Chandru, chairman of the Singapore Indian Chamber of Commerce and Industry, shared with me an example in the built environment industry. BIM, or BIM, Building Information Modeling. Okay, so BIM professionals were in high demand for their competencies and skills early last year, or in recent years. However, positions such as BIM manager, project manager, and architectural manager had to be filled by foreigners or outsourced to foreign companies because Singaporean architects and engineers were not sufficiently exposed to the convergence of these technologies with traditional engineering and architectural disciplines. The foreign talents were proficient in visualizing building information models and AutoCAD. And likewise, in the engineering domain, there is an increasing need for employees to have multidisciplinary, interdisciplinary skill sets. Businesses that have secured contracts from clients can't wait for a critical mass of Singaporeans to be trained before they can service the contracts. So foreign talents hence provide a good complement as our Singaporean core upskill and reskill for the changing demands. Now, notwithstanding that I am a NUS alumni, I must say that NUS' bold move in transforming curriculum structures, for example, setting up the new College of Design and Engineering to prepare future Singapore workforce who will be interdisciplinary, broad-based critical thinkers and problem solvers in a VUCA world. VUCA being volatile, uncertain, complex, and ambiguous, is exactly what industry expects of our world-class universities: to lead the way of change, to secure our workforce relevance in the new normal. Now, Mr. Roland Ng, President of the Singapore Chinese Chamber of Commerce, recently wrote an opinion piece in Chao Pao, and I'm very happy Minister Tan actually read it in Chinese just now. He shared that while companies are committed to do all they can to transform their business model, redesign jobs, offer training and upskilling, reskilling opportunities to locals, there remain a near to medium-term structural issue. That is, locals continue to shun certain jobs. For example, physically strenuous jobs, jobs that require shift work, workplaces in remote locations. There are certain deep-seated negative stereotypes of jobs which Singaporeans seem to not want to take on. Or perhaps I should say that Singaporean parents do not want their kids to take on. Now, these jobs, however, are critical and essential to our economy. Such jobs can be found in both domestic sector, like the built environment and construction, as well as export sector. For example, a considerable number of foreign manpower worked in our food manufacturing sector that exports about 60% of its manufacturing output to overseas markets. Without continued access to foreign workers, companies in these essential sectors will not be able to function, to stay viable and thrive, and hence even the jobs of the locals in those companies will be threatened and by extension impact the wider economy. Without access to foreign workers to take on work that locals do not want to do, it will affect the export readiness and competitiveness of Singapore brands. I spoke to Dr. Sian Sian Lei, CEO of AmCham Singapore, and she shared with me a preview of the soon-to-be-released 2021 AmCham Manpower Survey of member companies. 64% of respondents looking to hire Singaporeans for senior-level jobs, managers and above, are finding that candidates lack relevant skills, and 53% of respondents report candidates lack necessary work experience. So meanwhile, in order to fill these gaps, companies need to bring in qualified foreign talent who can do the job and also support the training and development of high-potential local talent, especially in areas such as technical knowledge and global markets. This feedback is pretty consistent with other TACs and chambers. So critical for Singapore is to understand what are the relevant skills and work experience that employers are looking for, and to be willing to step up to learn and to reskill, as well as to lean in to express our interest in picking up the new skills and our readiness to pick up the relevant work experiences. If we do not unleash our voice to compete for the job, we have no one else to blame. Asking, "Who has moved my cheese?" will not help. Go get the cheese. Be humble and learn from the foreign talent coach, and do not hesitate to ask the boss for that job when you are done learning. Why you? Because you are always ready to learn and will do the job even better than your foreign talent coach. And who knows, your foreign talent coach may get promoted in headquarters and bring you along as he rise or she rise in his or her career. There are many such heartwarming stories during the 30 years of my career. It does take two hands to clap. Everything starts, in my opinion, with the right frame of mind and attitude. Now, that said, during the COS, I did highlight that in engaging with the MNCs in particular, I hope that MTI and EDB, who are the ones the MNCs work with in the up front, will lean in on them to really recognize the value of the Singapore talent as the foundation of their business success. While it is very good to have MOM come in to police and to check, when it's at the policing end, it's always not so much fun, all right? When we start it right, that's always the best. So, if Singapore hopes to continue to secure good jobs and livelihoods for Singaporeans into the future, we need to continue to be amongst the best of global cities in the world. The alternative is to fall off to the wayside. For a moment, consider what that alternative might look like. We no longer are a hub for human capital and therefore lose our edge in attracting foreign direct investment. Without a melting pot of talents, innovations will likely be dry. And without innovation, the investments into the best-in-class infrastructure will not be funded. The businesses no longer find Singapore attractive for their hub activities, and the list continues to spiral downward. At that point, we will not be debating as to whether having foreign talent in our workforce is a good thing or not, but the debate would shift to how do we stop the brain drain of our younger Singaporeans who, in the absence of good jobs and good opportunities in a Singapore that has become unplugged from the global network, will need to leave their country in pursuit of better opportunities for themselves and their families elsewhere. The future of that Singapore in that story will be a sad one. We have watched this movie before. And as if this is not nightmarish enough, with Singapore's total fertility rate being in decline for a few decades and hitting a low of 1.1 in 2020, we will see the decline in the size of the Republic's working population. I have 4 daughters, so I can say this loudly. Let's make sure that we don't ever come close to this alternate state being a reality. Mr. Speaker, I hope that with humility, with pride, and with solidarity as Singaporeans, we will be a resilient nation. And as PM said in his NDR closing, we have done it before, we can do it again. I support Minister Lawrence Wong's motion.